Hello, welcome back. Today we are going to learn about common applications of failure criteria. So the prerequisites for it is to make sure that you have learned something about what are the three major failure criteria that we are going to use. Okay, so here we go. First application is going to be under uniaxial tension. You can see what is the force, and the force per unit area is pretty straightforward. So you can compute the stresses. So we'll assume that the bar axis is x. So only non-zero stress is S sub xx. Remember our notation? So that means that our stress state looks super simple. All the other components of stress are zero, only Sxx is there. Okay, in this particular case, the phase on which we are interested and the force direction, both of them match. So it's a normal stress. So as far as our principal stresses go, this is very simple. S max is maximum of 0 and Sxx. So because Sxx may be compressive, so maximum, if it is compressive, then S max is 0. S middle and S min depend upon whether one of them is 0 or not. S mid is actually always 0, and S min is minimum of 0 comma Sxx. So S mid equals, we don't really care about S mid so much. So S min is minimum of 0 comma Sxx. So it's a fairly simple state of stress. Okay. S mid is 0. I have forgotten to put 0 there. So make sure you understand the middle eigenvalue or the middle principal stress is 0 for this. Okay. So the maximum normal stress criterion is pretty easy. Material fails if the maximum of 0 comma Sxx equal to ultimate tensile strength, or the minimum is equal to the compressive strength. So this is pretty easy. So maximum normal stress criterion is extremely easy. Tresca criterion finds out that I have to do S max minus S min over 2. So in this particular case, it will turn out to be absolute value of Sxx over 2 if you do S max minus S min. And that turns out to be, because we know that under uniaxial tension, the absolute value of the stress must be equal to the yield stress for it to yield. Therefore, it is yield stress divided by 2, and that is Sy over 2. That is why that 2 comes in the Tresca criterion. Finally, von Mises criterion. If the bar is ductile, this is quite a mathematical item, but it's actually easy to implement. First, compute S mean. So this is Sxx plus Syy plus Szz over 3, and in this case it is Sxx over 3, and then you have to do S1 minus S mean squared plus S2 minus S mean squared plus S3 minus S mean squared. If you do that, you will get this. Substitute S mean is Sxx over 3, and you will get this square root of 2 over 3 times absolute value of Sxx. We know that for uniaxial tension, absolute value of Sxx must be equal to Sy. That's why we get this root 3 over 2. I mean, sorry, root 2 over 3. So this is how we applied for uniaxial tension. It's not at all a complex thing. You just have to use these two things, Tresca criterion, von Mises criterion, whatever. The main thing is to write what is the maximum principal stress, what is the minimum principal stress. Those two things are necessary, and then bang, you can write it. Okay. If there is only bending load, this is a very useful thing. So first thing is, you notice where is the highest bending moment. So you know along the x-axis, the highest bending moment is in the middle for this beam. So locate that. And then once you know the highest bending moment, you can compute within the cross section where is the highest stress, which is in this particular case, it's in the bottom here. Can you see that? And it is tensile stress. You can see it's perpendicular to the x-axis, Sxx. And so the location of the highest bending moment and the point of highest stress in the cross section, you have to find if it is only bending. And then that fiber is in a state of simple tension. Therefore, it's actually fairly easy to use. And so we know how to compute Sxx for bending. It's My over I In fact, the way to remember it is to remember my I, so my over I, and then S2 equal to S3 equal to 0. So we can just use the result that we had. So this is fairly simple. So for pure bending, it's the same as uniaxial tension, and we can figure out what's going on. Very good. So now let's move on to the next one. Now let's look at simple shear. So only non-zero stress is Sxy. All the other stresses are 0. So your state of stress is now going to look like this matrix. Remember, if Sxy is non-zero, Syx also has to be non-zero. Otherwise, it will not work. So Sxy is the one that matters. Okay. Now, how do you compute the principal stress? Well, now this is a problem, but it's not so huge because you can see that apart from this corner here, everything else is 0. Can you see that the stress is entirely in just one plane, the XY plane. Therefore, this is a plane stress. So we can use Mohr circle to find principal stresses. If you do that, you will find the principal stresses are given by Sxx plus Syy over 2 plus or minus square root of Sxx minus Syy whole squared over 4 plus Sxy squared. Most of it is 0. Sxx is 0. Syy is 0. You can see those two things are 0. So these two things are gone. This is gone. So you just get square root of Sxy squared, which is plus or minus absolute value of Sxy. So that is S1 and S2. So now we are ready. So the principal stress S max is absolute value of Sxy, S mid is 0, S min is minus Sxy. So if the bar is brittle, then the criterion is S max equal to S ultimate tensile strength, or S min is equal to ultimate compressive strength, but one of them is higher. So S ultimate tensile strength is smaller. So that's what we'll fail first. So this is your criterion. If the bar is ductile, the Tresca criterion will give you Sxy is Sy over 2. Okay, and then just substitute, you will see. And then the last one is the von Mises criterion. It will turn out you will get Sxy must be Sy over square root of 3 now. Because if you substitute, you will get, just substitute and see, and you'll get this formula. Bang, you'll get Sy over root 3. I don't want you to memorize all of these things. I want you to memorize the procedure, calculate the principal stresses, and use the formula for the different cases. Don't try to memorize for each specific case. It's crazy and it's not useful. It's much better to remember everything always goes the same way. Compute the principal stresses and use the formula in terms of principal stresses. That's the easiest. Okay, so we did simple shear. What else is left? Let us see where this is useful. Compared to uniaxial tension, simple shear is actually quite a bit more common for most of our applications. First application is very easy. That is torsion of bars. That is pretty easy. The second application comes from actually most joints. In this case, I have shown you a welded joint. You can see that the weld is under shear, and usually what they will do is they will use this, what is called the throat area, to compute the shear. So the stress will be sigma over throat area, and it will be treated as shear stress. And you will think it's in a state of simple shear. That's how we do. This will give you very conservative results, but works beautifully for welded joints. So for welded joints, find the force on the joint, divide it by the weld area, and treat it as simple shear. And use the simple shear equations and you're done, or whatever. Use the stress state that goes with simple shear and compute the various ways. That's it. These two things are very useful. For torsion, it turns out that instead of Sxy, it will be called Sr theta. R is the direction of the phase and theta is the direction of the force. I'm sorry, it should be Sz theta, or I'm sorry, Sx theta, not R theta, because X is the direction of the phase and theta is the direction of the force. And so it's again shear stress, and it is Tr over J. just like my over I. So once you get that, you can do this problem also. So these two are actually very straightforward to use. Now we come to combined loading. This is typical for most applications. Common occurrence for shafts and frames where the maximum stresses are on the surface. Okay, so how do you use it now? What it is that on the cross section, you now have both shear stress and normal stress. Notice that at different places, remember the two commandments of adding. So I can only combine this shear stress with that normal stress. I cannot take this shear stress, which is on this side, and combine it with this normal stress because they are not at the same point. So I have to take shear stress at that point and combine it with the normal stress at that point. You cannot combine other ways. Okay. So the stress state now looks like this, SXX, and then this one is SXZ. And it could be positive, negative. We don't really care. We're just putting that up there. So this is the stress state. Okay. And if you have SXZ, you will also have SZX. And the thing is no other stresses. So again, this is plane stress in this plane. So it's plane stress on the cross section. Therefore, we can again use the usual Mohr circle formulae. In this particular case, SXX has two terms. One from axial loads, that will give me SXX, and one from bending, My over I. So you have to combine them two, and now you have to use rule number 2 for combination. They both have the same force and same phase, so you can add them together. Okay, and SXZ is due to the torsion in the shaft. If you add up all of this, you will get, you can do Mohr circle, and your formula looks like this. Now, unfortunately, things are not zero. So you have to actually use the stress state and substitute. You will see that I will get some complicated thing, but I got S1, S2, S3 is always zero in this case again. So it's fairly easy for us to apply the failure criteria. This is how these failure criteria work in different cases. Okay. So there's a flow chart that enables you to determine what to do. So ductile behavior means that your strain to failure is more than 0.05, more than 5% strain to failure will give you high ductility. Brittle behavior, less than that. Brittle behavior, if you want to do, you want to use the Coulomb-Mohr criterion. If it's high ductility, but if tension and compression are not the same, then go and use Coulomb-Mohr criterion again. But if tension and compression are the same, then you can either use the distortion energy, which is a little bit less conservative than the maximum shear stress, but people use them. The question is, you can see that unlike the previous cases, now there is an N in the denominator. You see this N. So what the heck is that? That's the factor of safety. So now you can, instead of putting, if you put N equal to 1, you got back the formula before. Now you can put 1.5, 1.3, whatever you like, and you'll get factor of safety. Okay, so this chart is important. It will show up in your homework. So you should be able to use this chart to figure out which kind of criterion to use. And please remember the Macaulay brackets here, which will tell you whether it is 0 or not. Okay, test your understanding. 3 questions. Describe the stress matrix for simple tension and simple shear. List the principal stresses for simple tension and simple shear, how they are computed. State 2 examples each for the application of uniaxial tension and simple shear conditions. We are done. So our next item is how to do fatigue analysis of a shaft. We will do that next.